It's no longer news that the entrance of the leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso into Africa and the world's geopolitical scene has completely shifted the order of things. Since independence, African countries have been historically in alliance with Western countries, deepening diplomatic relations with countries such as the US, UK, France, and other European countries. However, since the military juntas of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso came on the scene, this historic alliance with the West has changed. The military juntas have exposed the flaw in the relationship between African countries and the West, revealing how one-sided it is and how it mostly benefits the West. Thus, they have shifted from the traditional alliance with Western countries to building relations with non-Western countries, including Russia, China, Turkey, and Iran. But it's not just shifting away from the West. In some cases, just like that of France, they have gone out of their way to cut off diplomatic ties completely with them. This is also the case with Sweden. In a recent turn of events, the ambassador of Sweden to Mali was summoned and ordered to leave the country within 72 hours because of a hostile statement by a Swedish minister.
On Friday, August 9, 2024, the Malian Foreign Ministry announced that Sweden's ambassador to Bamako, Christina Kunel, has been declared persona non grata and ordered to leave the country in 72 hours. The decision comes on the heels of hostile remarks by the Swedish Minister for International Cooperation.
This was made known in a statement made to the public by Mali's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it was revealed that the move came some days after Sweden's Minister for International Development Cooperation and Trade, Johan Forsell, said the government had decided to phase out aid to Mali. Commenting on a post on X, which said Mali was cutting ties with Ukraine, Forsell stated that, "You cannot support Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine and at the same time receive several hundred million crowns each year in development aid." Now, according to the spokesperson for Forsell, the decision to halt and outphase development aid was taken in December, but humanitarian assistance would still continue in Mali. Aside from this recent diplomatic spat, the Sweden authorities had earlier stated in June that it planned to shut down its embassy in Bamako, Mali's capital, by the end of 2024 as a result of the deteriorating security conditions. Recall that Mali has been plagued by unrest driven by armed groups, making parts of the country ungovernable. And despite the number of foreign missions and Western military forces deployed to deal with the insecurity, the situation only worsened, leading to the death of thousands of Malians and the displacement of many more. This was why the coup occurred in 2020, and the leader, Captain Assimi Goïta, has vowed and made it a priority to regain control over the entire country from separatists and hardline groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIL. The fact that the presence of Western forces in the country at the beginning of the security crisis did not solve the situation, but even worsened it, has made the military authorities in Mali to be distrustful of the West and have even accused France of conniving with the insurgents and armed rebels to spread the insecurity in the country. If you recall, Mali was the first country in the Sahel to cut diplomatic relations with France, end the colonial defense agreement with France, and send the United Nations MINUSMA forces out of the country for their inability to deal with the insecurity, despite their advanced military equipment and the number of years they stayed in the country. Following this move, Mali, together with Niger and Burkina Faso, has moved closer to non-Western allies, notably Russia, the greatest enemy of the West. In recent times, Russia has been helping Mali deal with the insecurity with the aid of its militant group, Wagner. The three nations, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, have also moved closer to each other due to their common interests and common ground. In July, they signed a new defense cooperation pact, hailing it as a step towards greater integration. According to the military leader of Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta, the strengthened relationship means an attack on one of us will be an attack on all the other members. Sweden is, however, not the only Western country that Mali has cut off diplomatic ties with in recent times. Earlier this month, the authorities in Mali announced that the country is severing diplomatic ties with Ukraine, following an admission by a senior official in Ukraine regarding Kyiv's role in a heavy defeat in July that killed dozens of mercenaries from Russia's Wagner group, as well as Malian soldiers. Recall that late last month in northern Mali, the Northern Tuareg armed rebels announced that they killed at least 84 mercenaries and 47 Malian soldiers over 3 days of fighting. This, according to the report, appears to be the heaviest defeat suffered by Wagner since it stepped into the conflict 2 years ago. Now, after this report of defeat for the Malian military came out, instead of the Ukrainian authorities to offer a show of support and compassion for the lives of the soldiers lost in the fight, the spokesperson for Ukraine's military intelligence agency, Andriy Yusov, told the public broadcaster Suspilny that the Malian rebels had received all the information they needed, which allowed them to carry out their operation against the Russian war criminals. This statement doesn't speak of compassion but joy that lives, including that of the Malian military forces were lost. When the authorities in Mali received the news of the statement, they were shocked. According to the reports, Mali said it had learned with deep shock of the remarks and that Yusov had admitted Ukraine's involvement in a cowardly, treacherous, and barbaric attack by armed terrorist groups that resulted in the death of members of the Malian defense and security forces. So immediately, Mali released a statement from the government spokesman Colonel Abdoulaye Maïga, which stated that it would break off relations with immediate effect. Mali also cited comments by Ukraine's ambassador to Senegal Yuri Pivovarov, who was summoned by Senegal on Saturday over a video published on Facebook in which Pivovarov provided unequivocal and unqualified support for the terrorist attack in Mali. According to Maïga, Ukraine's actions violated Malian sovereignty and constituted unacceptable foreign interference and support for international terrorism. Following this move by Mali, the Ukrainian government tried to deny playing any role whatsoever in the deadly rebel assault. The authorities in Ukraine denied any involvement in northern Mali fighting that led to the death of Malian soldiers and Wagner fighters in July, describing Mali's decision to sever diplomatic ties over the incident as short-sighted and hasty. Ukraine Foreign Ministry expressed regret over the decision made by Mali's transitional government, saying that it was done without a thorough study of the incident's facts and circumstances. In the statement released, it said, "Ukraine unconditionally adheres to the norms of international law, the inviolability of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of other countries. However, their denial was unable to convince the Malian government and even that of Niger." Following the news, Niger announced that it was cutting ties with Ukraine with immediate effect, accusing Kyiv of supporting terrorist groups. In a televised statement, government spokesman Amadou Abdrahmane said, "The government of the Republic of Niger, in total solidarity with the government and people of Mali, decides in complete sovereignty to sever diplomatic relations between the Republic of Niger and Ukraine with immediate effect." He added that Niger would ask the UN Security Council to debate Ukraine's aggression. So, just with a careless statement made by Ukraine, it has effectively lost 2 African allies at a time when Kyiv is trying desperately to garner support on the global stage. Over the last 30 months, Ukraine has been working hard to persuade world leaders to condemn Russia, affirm their unwavering recognition of its territorial integrity, and support its war effort. As Ukraine tries to fight off deadly Russian imperialism, one would have expected it to receive enthusiastic support from African states, which have been resisting imperial aggression since their very inception. Yet Ukraine seems to have decided the elimination of a handful of Wagner mercenaries, whose loss would cause no meaningful harm to the Russian war machine, is more important to its cause than the support of entire African nations. By helping rebels fighting against government-aligned Russian mercenaries score a victory in Mali, Ukraine perhaps slightly embarrassed Russia, but achieved no leverage in its own war against it. In fact, its open support for the Malian rebels seriously undermined its credibility on the global stage, demonstrating that it is not just a proud nation resisting a much larger and more powerful imperial invader with everything it has got, but a belligerent determined to assert power over its enemy at any cost, including the security of other states thousands of miles away from its territory. Following the July attack, regional body ECOWAS released a statement tacitly condemning the apparent Ukrainian overreach in Mali. Although Mali was suspended from the group in 2022, in the statement, ECOWAS expressed its firm disapproval and firm condemnation of any outside interference in the region, which could constitute a threat to peace and security in West Africa, and any attempt aiming to draw the region into current geopolitical confrontations. Africans are concerned about Ukrainian actions against Russians on the continent because they still have vivid memories of the Cold War era and the harm the extension of the rivalry between Russia and the United States to the continent inflicted on their countries. They remember, for example, how Western nations helped allied separatist rebels torture and kill Congolese leader Patrice Lumumba, fearing that he would bring his resource-rich Central African nation closer to the Soviet Union. They also remember how the Cold War rivalries transformed the power struggle between Angola's liberation movements into a 20-year civil war, which ended up claiming the lives of some 1 million people. Right now, it remains to be seen whether the backlash it received over its actions in Mali will encourage Ukraine to cut down on its intelligence and other military support activities against Russia's Wagner Group across Africa. However, one thing that is certain, is that Ukraine cannot win the support of the global community and convince them of the righteousness of its struggle, while jeopardizing the security and territorial integrity of other nations in the name of weakening Russia. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.